FSElite at FS Expo 2025 is proudly presented by Meridian GMT. Meridian GMT are on track to create some high-quality but affordable flight sim hardware, including their yoke, throttle, and X-ray controller. Learn more about Meridian GMT down in the video description down below at meridiangmt.com.
Okay, next up on the FSElite stage, brought to you by Meridian GMT, I have Jordan from Elevons. Round of applause for Jordan.
Is this working?
Give it a go.
Hello?
You're all good.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. What's up, Aaron? So my name is Jordan Elevons, like Jordan said. I'm from Elevons LLC. I developed my own flight sim called Exos Sky. So today's presentation is going to be, what is the flight sim? Who am I? Why should you care? And then the last one is, most of the flight sim was developed using natural language development, or LLM programming. And I'm going to go over, basically, for anybody in the crowd who wants to get into their own game design, how to use AI to develop your own video games. So the first one starts with, what is Exos Sky? Like I said, it's a brand new flight sim. Everything's realistically simulated, but it's kind of like, well, I'll get into that. The setting is in the future, so all the aircraft are, well, not all. I just released the P-51 and the ME-109, but all the aircraft are fictional, but they use realistic physics. In the future, basically, we've colonized a bunch of different planets. We are flying on Venus, and it's really dangerous. So one AI cat's mission is to create the most safe autopilot ever. And to do that, he needs you to perform dangerous stunts. So the game is Tony Hawk's meets aerobatics. So you score points by doing the most dangerous stuff you can. So anything the FAA says you shouldn't do, you score points for doing. So that includes flying through, narrow canyons, flying upside down, flying as fast as you can, all that sort of jazz. There's 8 different levels. All of them are themed after computer parts, because I'm a geek like that. And one of them at the very end uses cutting-edge Gaussian splatting 3D scanning of an environment to be able to fly through it. There's 11 aircraft, easy mod support. There's more coming soon. Like I said, I just released the ME-109 and the P-51. But yeah, super easy. You can make a new plane in about 10 minutes. And lastly, I'm going to skip to the next one after this. The realistic flight model, everything is broken into chunks. The forces are calculated per chunk of each aircraft, each component. And then that's applied to the rigid body. So it's all realistic physics. You can skip to the next one. Noise. All right, make sure that works. Good. So, like I said, I'm Jordan. I'm going to talk a little bit about me and why you should care. I'm a licensed pilot. I've been flying since I was a kid. I grew up in the Caribbean, and so that picture in the bottom left there, that's actually, I took that on the east side of the island of St. Croix, which is where I'm from. It was an interesting place to live. The DA-20 up there is what I trained in, and they were flying DC-3s for cargo as late as 2007, so that was kind of neat to fly with. In terms of gaming history, so you know where I'm coming from with this game, a lot of Janes, a lot of space sims. So Free Space 2 is also a big one. If you've never played it, it's awesome. Homeworld is a really good space strategy game. And then IL-2 Sturmovik, of course. My background is in art and design. So I went to college for industrial design, but I started making video game art from very early. A lot of the stuff that I did was, in high school, I did a lot of modding. I don't know if anybody's a fan of Battlestar, but Battlestar Galactica, I did Beyond the Red Line. I did the flight dynamics for that. I also did a bunch of modeling for a game called Angels Fall First. It's like Battlefront 2, if you've never tried it. And I also, like I said, I got my start doing game art. After that, I've done actual aircraft design or cockpit design. I was an industrial designer. Does anybody know what an industrial designer is? I got 1. Okay, that's good. Most people it's 0. Industrial designer, if you guys don't know, is basically like an engineer designs what goes in the car. An industrial designer designs the exterior of the car. Or same thing with a phone. So it's basically the form that follows the function. So I got to do this in the UK, designing the Ego cockpit, which is, I think it flew a couple years later. And I was like, awesome. Like I came back to school after summer vacation. I was like, I'm the hot stuff. So that was a really big moment in my life. I also learned how to design aircraft by teaching myself using simplified aircraft design for home builders, and a lot of the logic from that is now inside Exos Sky. I spent a long time designing a flat pack airplane, which is that guy in the bottom. I was trying to make flying cheap and affordable, so that's what that was. And then finally after that, I've done a lot of industrial design. I've done a lot of work with that. I even got to pitch to Virgin Galactic. I pitched a digital twin system to them. I got to touch a spaceship. It was like the coolest moment of my life. That was so cool. Aside from that, I've done product design, prosthetics. During COVID, I did a mask that scanned your face and 3D printed it directly to your, not on your face, but to match your face. So yeah, I've kind of gone from making video games to making real world stuff and then back to making video games. You can switch to the next one. So, does anybody here actually do game development? Does anybody want to do game development? Does anybody want to make their own flying games? I'm not seeing hands, but I'm going to assume that I saw hands in your minds so that I can just keep telling you about it. So, this is a really big topic, and I kind of wanted to provide something useful to you guys, the audience, like how can you take this with you after this talk? So, a lot of people are talking about what's called vibe coding. And vibe coding is like, oh, I just want to make a flight sim, make it for me. And it programs the whole thing. And you have like these YouTube videos, coding is dead. Like you'll never need to do anything again. The reality of it is a little different. You get stuff like this in the bottom left, vibe coding and its consequences. You basically get these huge projects that become so unwieldy, the AI can't figure out how to fix it anymore. Or this one's pretty funny, in the second one in the middle there, that guy posted on Twitter like, hey, I made an AI product, people are paying for it, you don't need to code. And then, of course, the internet, being the internet, trashed his website because he had no security implemented because an AI just vibe coded it. And one last bit is that flight sim in the top right corner. If you can believe it, that's vibe coded, it makes, I think, $50,000 a month. Because of ads. Like, it's not a good product, it's just like hopping on the hype train. So like, this is what you get from like the reality of just like asking an AI to just do everything for you. So I developed my game in Unity. I'm just going to explain a little bit about it so you guys have the understanding of the engine. Unity is a object-based game engine. So what that means is you put an object in the level and you attach behaviors to it. And you can create a complicated system by attaching a lot of small behaviors. So for example, if you wanted to make a tank, you would have the body of the tank would have a script that goes forward, back, left, right, and the turret of the tank would have another script that makes it look left and right. So it's attaching these small behaviors to create complex machines. So what I'm going to talk about is how I built the flight model for Exos Sky. I'm not sure how visible this is, but every aircraft is built out of a JSON table, which is basically a list. And each list has each point on the wing surface, it has its location in space and its vector, so which direction it's pointing. Over there on the right, my data is split up, or my scripts are split up into data, which is the aircraft data, what reads in that big file, the flyer, which is what calculates all the physics, and then it has the weather and it has utilities, so like equations that I can reuse. So for natural language development, I think that, like, even if you're in the audience, and I know that everybody raised their hands in their minds, but no one raised their hands physically, but you can still do a lot of really interesting stuff for yourself using these techniques. I'll give you an example. My spouse really likes to watch Hulu, and the problem that they always had was whenever they clicked on things in Hulu, you know, like they wanted to watch Schitt's Creek. They've seen the whole thing, so they wanted to skip to a random episode. There's nothing that does that. I made a little plugin for my Google Chrome that lets you press it and skip to a random episode. So any small things in your life that you can think of, you can improve with this. So if you are getting into this, if you are getting into AI architecture and design, you want to first start by like understanding the layout of your software, right? Mine in particular starts with aircraft.cs. That's like the core part of it. Sorry, I just thought of something funny in my head. That is where everything kind of feeds into. So I'm not going to go into the details on this because you don't really need to unless you want to hear it in the questions and answers. But the idea is that you need to understand the software before you build it, right? Don't let the AI make the decisions. You make the decisions, you ask it what you want it to do. And then you build the scripts brick by brick. So in this case, for example, on the left, this big script was just write me a flight simulation script. It bit a bunch of assumptions. That script is unusable. I can't work with it. But instead, if you say, write a script that takes in variables, performs this equation, outputs a force, it will create a much smaller script that is exactly what you want, where now you know what it does, and you can build on it. Then you say, okay, now you have the force, now add a rigid body so that it applies those forces to that body. Last two things, I think, or not last two, I have two more after this. So the first one is going to be read the code. So make sure that like when you actually get the result from the AI, you're going to go through it and try and understand it. And the next part is ask questions and comments. So basically, in code, you can have a comment which explains the code. And you're going to want that so that you can understand what the AI is writing. And it's a really good way to learn how to program. Lastly, and I know I'm going to be cutting this talk short, but button's not working anymore. My button has died, sir. I do not know what to do. There we go. Thank you. The last couple things, ask it to organize and simplify. So I have a really big script here, but I asked it, hey, break it into chunks for me so it's easier to understand. Then I also say, know when to quit. Because a lot of times, so the way AI works is it collects a lot of information, and then over time, it starts to get confused about what information it should pay attention to. So a lot of times, starting over is probably the best chance. So you're writing the code, it gets confused, start a new script. And then lastly, context is key, which is managing that. So like, as you go through writing the code, you're going to want to make sure like, hey, this one, I want you to pay attention to this specific part. So I'm only going to give you that part. I'm not going to give you the whole script. I'm just going to give you a small part of it so you know that's only what I care about. And so with that, I know that I'm like 15 minutes early on this, but I want to know, is there any questions or anything like that? Is anybody curious about how this works? And go ahead, Spencer.
Yes, we have time for questions. So if anybody has any questions for Jordan.
If you don't, that's fine, but yes.
And please say your name before asking their question.
I'm Greg, G-R-E-G.
Hi, Greg.
Hi. I'm curious. I want to make sure that I understand what AI is used for here, so I'm going to ask the question. Or I'm going to make a statement, you tell me if I understand.
Okay.
My statement is, it seems that AI is used to reference code. In other words, AI understands the coding that you're using itself, like if you're using C++, let's just say.
C#, but yeah.
Yeah. So AI is programmed to understand each one of the commands in the C++ command structure. And so it will, if you ask it a question or tell it you want it to do something, it will reference those code instructions, put together a logical sequence that it thinks fits what you want it to do, and then it lists that, and you take a look at it and see if it's doing exactly what you want it to do.
Close, yeah. It's not listing it, it actually writes the code. So I called it natural language development because I write in English what I want.
Yes.
And then the AI takes that and then basically translates it to machine code to do what I want.
Sure.
And then that's the script.
Got it. Yep. Okay, I understand. So the AI is a shortcut, sort of, that references code instructions and puts it together in a way that it seems to the AI that makes sense. And you don't have to go. I suppose it's helpful to know how to program in C++, but this saves you time time from actually sitting down and using the keyboard to program.
Yeah, so I've taken a lot of programming classes going through college. I never got it. Like, I'm not great at learning other languages, like Spanish, for example. I'm Hispanic and I can't speak it. So I use it to, but I know, sorry, to get back to that, I know what a list is, or a Boolean, or a variable, like that sort of stuff. So I'm able to describe to it what I want in language that's closest to like the structure that I want. And then it basically just says like, okay, I'm gonna just take what you said and then turn it into that machine code. So it's kind of like, it's literally like you're talking to a translator and you're saying like, hey, translate what I'm saying into Spanish. And it does that, but it's doing it into C++ or C#.
The Star Trek translator.
Yeah, it pretty much is Babel, right? B-A-B-E-L.
So you take one of these JSON files and you run it to see if it works.
Well, so no, the JSON file is how I define the aircraft. And the aircraft is defined or built in Blender using a custom tooling system that the AI also wrote, but that I directed it, hey, I need you to create a JSON that looks like this.
Sure.
And then I feed that into the game.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else?
Any other questions for Jordan? Give it up for Jordan.
Thank you, guys. I know I ended early. So.
Yeah, it's fine. Here you go. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone.